All right, guys, welcome to a special episode with my good friend Rick Mayo. Rick is the CEO, owner. What do you call yourself, Rick?
I don't know,
I
man.
don't know. He is,
Janitor, chief cheerleader, I don't know.
yeah, of Alloy Personal Training. It is a host of things. It is a two brick and mortar locations that he owns. It is thousands of licensees, and it is now a franchise, which he will be telling us a little bit more about. But Rick has been in the industry for, I've been in the industry 18 years. Rick was in the industry when I was in high school. So that makes him much older than me and much in the industry a lot longer than me. And
No
hence,
doubt.
Rick's been doing this for a really, you founded your first gym in what, 92?
Yes.
In 1992, and has been doing the gym he founded is still it's gone through a lot of facelifts, but is still running today,
Sitting in
which
it
is,
right now in a
oh my
conference
god,
room that was,
that,
I don't know what it was 30 years ago, but now it's a conference room.
oh my gosh, that is hilarious. So you're in the same exact location 30 years ago. Wow.
Yep.
So I originally saw Rick speak at a Tom Plummer event, and Rick, there's lots of speakers in the fitness industry, but Rick was one that caught my attention very quickly, and I reached out to him, and I think we booked a couple coaching calls. This is back when I wasn't doing any coaching myself. I was just running my gym,
Yep.
and reached out to Rick and did a couple coaching calls. And actually, I flew me and two of my team members down to Atlanta.
That was awesome.
That was great. We had a great day. We spent a
We
full
did.
day with Rick, and I believe like whatever you charged me for that, like you might have undercharged me by like 10.
$13 or something like
Yeah, I think he charged me
that.
like it was really. I've been really fortunate that I've had to like I've hired Charlie Weingroff for a full day for like a lunch bill. Like it was like it was crazy. So
Good to be Vince.
yeah, no, it was because it was a long time ago. But
Right.
no, we spent a full day with you, and that was an amazing day. It totally transformed a ton of things that we were doing and we were thinking, and it was really inspiring, real great days. But so Rick's been a huge mentor of mine for a really long time. um, now we get to speak together on the Perform Better tour, and I personally like it. I just get to see Rick at the bar, and I just ask Rick questions, and Rick just talks, and I just kind of make mental notes in my head, and it's a really valuable experience. So Rick is a good friend and a really a founding business leader in the fitness industry. So Rick, thanks for coming on.
Man, I'm going to supplant Thomas Plummer pretty soon as the Godfather, you know?
Well, so if he's the Godfather, what are you?
I don't know. Who would I be in that? I don't know who would I be.
Yeah,
I need to pull up my Godfather Rolodex of characters because I'm somebody in there. I just don't know who. One of the
right.
lower tier guys, I'm sure.
No, well, that makes me who's what's the guy's name where he's who he plays Christopher Moltisanti
Yeah, yeah,
in
yeah,
Sopranos,
yeah.
but
I know.
in the show
He's like a
where
baby.
he shoots his feet. What's it? We makes him dance.
Yeah,
I
yeah. I
forget.
know what you're talking about.
Oh my God,
Uh,
that's who I am. The guy that gets the water. Yeah, yeah.
right. Yeah, yeah. I've
So
been.
you're higher up than that. You're higher up than
It's
that.
just
That's
time in
right.
the trenches, man. You just need to get a little older. That's all. You'll get there.
I'm working at it. I'm working at it. Well, the COVID-19 has taken some hair off. That's why I've definitely
For real. Yeah, that'll happen.
I definitely wearing a hat more often. So, well, I wanted to interview. It's funny because I texted Rick yesterday. I was like, hey, you want to jump on and talk shop? And he asked me. He was like, well, is this a podcast or a call? And I was like, it was supposed to be a call, but we turned it into a podcast. So
Good.
I'm getting value. My listeners are going to get value, and everybody's. And hopefully a few of you will listen to this and buy one of Rick's franchises, and then we all win. So,
Yeah, that'll be good.
all right. So Rick is in Atlanta, Georgia, and
Correct.
fun fact about Georgia is it is, what is the date today? It is April 22nd, and as we are recording this today, Georgia is the only state in the U.S. Is that correct?
That's, as far as I know, that's reopened. Yes.
As far as we know, and there's going to be a lot we're going to say that we might not know. We're just going to say it anyway. And so Rick is in Georgia, and he has been given the green light to
Yeah.
open his businesses. And the green light lifts on Friday, right? April 24th, I think, is the day.
Right.
And you're
Yeah.
going to
You
be.
know, it's funny, Vince, because last weekend, I think my wife went to Costco and it was basically, hey, you can't come into Costco unless you're wearing a mask, right? That was on like Sunday, I believe. And then literally on Monday, the governor comes out and he's like, screw it. Everything's open on Friday. So it's like it was like this random list of things, right? Like gyms, which hooray for that. Gyms, bowling alleys. I don't know. Maybe there's a bowling league that's upset. Maybe he bowls. I don't know. Barbershops. There's all these sort of random services that are open. And then as of Monday, so that'll be this upcoming Friday. As of Monday, it's restaurants and it's basically everything but large venues and bars.
Yeah, the bars. Yeah, you
Yep.
don't want to be stuck in a bar right now. Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
no, no. Some drunk guy trying to stick his tongue in your ear. That's always a precarious position to be in, COVID or not.
I know, I know. So let me start with this question. It's a little off of. I gave Rick a couple questions before we started, but I never follow the script. So get ready, Rick. But
Fire away, man. Let's do it. Anyway, let's just talk.
yeah. So there's obviously this period of time where you closed your gym and you went strictly online, and I'm sure you've made adjustments for that. As I've been doing a ton of coaching on getting business owners to switch over to this online platform for their members. Question is this: I'm willing to bet, and I know this for a fact because I'm surveying my members right now, and a lot of them are saying when we open, they probably will not come back. And not everyone, but a large majority. So the first question, Rick, is basically you are going to have most likely in your gym a group of people that are going to come back to the gym and they're ready to rock. And then there's going to be another group of people that aren't ready but still want to continue online. Talk about how you're going to kind of navigate the two of those situations.
Yeah. So, and you hit the nail on the head, Vince. This is exactly what we're going through right now. So, it was announced Monday of this last week. This is a Wednesday for those of you. I don't know when this will come out. This is Wednesday. So imagine it was announced on Monday. And then later that evening, I copied the article, pasted it in our private Facebook page for members only, and said, hey, great news. We're opening again. We're going to wait. We're going to open on Monday. So a week from today, we'll be open. And then we also sent out an email to our list, right? And then we can get into the virtual playbook that we were running. But just to down and dirty, all of our coaches had a bucket of clients that they were servicing, and they were directly communicating with them, engaging them at a high level. So they also reached out to their bucket and said, hey, look, we're back in it, starting Monday. And I think we really have what we've seen, and this is very early innings, we haven't even opened yet, but what we've seen from an initial reaction is, hell yes, you're open. This is awesome, right? That's group one. Group two, hell no, it's way too early. Maybe even it's irresponsible, because it's pretty polarizing, right? So you got that. And then lastly is like, yes, but not yet, right? So I'm going to wait until, because our official shelter in place isn't lifted until the end of April. And we're not at the end of April yet. So a lot of people are like, hey, give it a few more weeks. And so I think you have like a wait and see camp, a party on camp, and a not yet camp, right?
Yeah.
But we didn't lose, we didn't have hardly any churn, thankfully, going from open to virtual. And as you know, it kind of rolled, like for us, it sort of rolled in slow, right? Like we started to see people just not showing up, and then the fear started to pick up a little bit, less people showing up. So we're probably at about 50% capacity when we pulled the plug on it anyway. Mm-hmm. And then a few days later, the governor shut us all down anyway, so no big deal. I think we're going to roll out in a similar manner, right? So we're probably going to see a skeleton schedule at first, people coming in slowly, and then as the general sort of confidence picks up and we're able to prove out that we're doing things well and safely, that we'll start to see people roll back in. But thankfully, virtually, we were doing a really good job and had not seen much churn at all. And so a lot of people were really surprised at how well they liked virtual. And certainly in a forced situation, they were like, man, this is great. And I don't even know if you know the suspense, but we have an app. So in the app, you can communicate. There's behavioral changes. How are you feeling today? All the workouts are driven via video. We can build a month's worth of workouts. They can rate the difficulty of them. We see if they did them or not. And so a lot of our clients that were coming in consistently to the brick and mortar didn't even know that we had that, because there's no reason for them to use it unless they were snowbirding or taking a vacation, or, and then they might use it, might not. They're like, don't worry about it. I need a vacation anyway. I'm not even going to work out. And so all of a sudden our members were like, wow, I didn't know you guys had this. This is an amazing tool. This thing is great. It does all these things for me, and we communicate through it, right?
Yep.
You can create group texts and group chats and all these things. So anywho,
and it was is that something that you guys created with Alloy? Or
yes.
Okay.
Yep. So we already had that built. We certainly didn't predict we'd be using it at scale like we are now. And we had built it for the very reasons that I said, like, hey, it's a value add. Client wants to work out twice at your gym, and then they're stuck at home with the kids one day. Here's the workout you do at home. We can hold you accountable. You can track food. It pulls in my, gosh dang it. What's the nutrition app? I'm drawing a blank. I got quarantine brain. MyFitnessPal.
Okay, yeah.
So they can track nutrition, and you can see if they're tracking. And so there's all these accountability tools that we thought were great, but no one really used it as much as we probably should have until now. And it gave my coaches an opportunity to really learn how to use it, because they would use it a little, but we basically had a sort of an app team, if you will. And when, say, someone's client was going out of town, they would tell that person that runs our app, hey, Matt, I've got so-and-so going out of town. Can you give them 3 or 4 workouts and make sure we're holding them accountable? Because all of their interaction and most of their time is being eaten up, on the floor, right? Servicing clients live. So I feel like we're going to have about 50-50 to start, maybe a bit less on the showing up to work outside, which will allow us to, maybe run a lesser crew. And then the ones that aren't in that day, we'll probably flip-flop it to keep it fair. The coaches that stay home will continue to service the buckets of virtual clients. We might have to reshuffle those buckets, or give, all coaches access to all clients. So whoever's home that day does all their due diligence. But yeah, that's what we're anticipating right now, just based on early reactions. And that's kind of common sense. That's what we saw. Again, it's sort of the inverse of what we saw from rolling in, right, when things were starting to shut down.
That's great. And so talk about, so you're going to really continue what you're doing from the online perspective and just start to do more in-person stuff. Talk about and this is something I've been thinking about a lot, and I'm actually jumping on a call with my mastermind today at noon to go over this, but we've been on lots of calls. But talk about the very specific things that you're going to do inside your facility to make this the safest environment possible. There's no, you can't prevent everything, obviously, but what plans do you have in terms of your opening soon to make sure that this is the safest environment possible for your clients?
Yeah, $1 million question. So thankfully for us, and as you mentioned before, we had pivoted to franchising. So, with the explosion of the studio models in the last few years, we found Atlanta's pretty competitive, similar to your market events, where there's a lot of people in that vertical that services what we call team training, which is boot camp or large group training, right? So our big differentiator has always been our personal training, and we know how to service it in groups of up to 6 and make it feel and smell and look just like personal training. And so when we pivoted to franchising earlier this year, or late last year, we are going all in personal training. Well, first and foremost, obviously no one could see this coming, but it's been very helpful for us, because by virtue of shrinking our facility from 8,000 feet down to 2,500 feet, right, and making it all personal training, the groups are a lot smaller. So we have a lot less people in open space. That's helpful in and of itself, right? And the groups are more intimate. And we can also control it better, right? When you're doing team training, you just have lots of people moving around. I'm not saying I don't like team training. I'm saying through the lens of like a virus and social distancing, it's going to be a little bit harder, right? So for us, we can service almost a full till of clients. And the things that we can do are obviously continuing on with our clinically clean protocols, which we have anyway, but now we certainly have invested in some industrial cleaners and things, right? That are reported to, kill COVID on contact. And so we have a mister, and we're misting this stuff nightly. And and also the advantage of being in a personal training setting is that we're able to control the programming in a way that also lends itself to social distancing. Meaning, one example would be, okay, everyone, the workout for this individual, for each individual, is going to be done with their own equipment for the entire time, right? So you think about team training, it's always a rotation on a clock of some kind of a station or something, right?
Yep.
Typically. Well, that means then by default, you're sharing equipment. So for us, we're able to say, no, we do sets and reps, right? We're not running everything on the clock. And because of that, we're able to put someone in their own space with a kettlebell, a dumbbell, whatever implementation that we want, and let them work out in their own space. And then because our workouts are an hour long, but we're typically using about 45 minutes of that hour, it gives our coaches time between every session to wipe down all the equipment that was used, that was touched by those individuals, right? So as far as, and these are things we were doing right up until we closed. So as far as social distancing and controlling what we're able to do, we were just really fortunate that we had chosen to go this route. We did it as a competitive, sort of a differentiator for competitive reasons, but it turns out to be the perfect business model moving forward. And I think it's going to be really good for us moving forward, coming out of this, to be able to say that, hey, our groups are small. An example of that, it doesn't even matter. I think we all, if you really practically think about it, if someone goes to the grocery store somewhere else and then comes here and they're living in a house of other people that are doing similar things, there's no way to identify where you caught it per se, right? I mean, it could be in your local community, but where, how, we don't even know. And so I think time will tell on those factors. But, I've heard people say things like, well, I don't want to go to some big gym where there's a ton of people in there that I don't even know. And so whether it's right or wrong, as far as how you contract a virus, there is some general trust in knowing the people that you work out with. There's some assumed trust that they're cleaner, or that you know them and you trust them. And that means they're taking the safety protocols that maybe you feel like you should be taking, right? There's not some random person over there who you don't know at all, who you think might be crazy, who's sneezing, or, who knows, right? And so it's an interesting dynamic when the groups are smaller and they legitimately know everyone in there, that there is inherently a higher trust level. Like, okay, well, I'm not going to a gym where I don't know these people again. I'm just coming in here. And if you really think about it, it's like, well, yeah, but we're going to do everything we can, but that's not necessarily scientifically sound, but that's the general sentiment, which is really important, right? Because we're going to take all the precautions we can when they get here, but it just makes them feel better because there's less people. So again, we're lucky we had landed on this business model ahead of time. And so it allows us to control the experience much better than either a general service gym, obviously, or a team training model where you just have a lot of people. And in a lot of ways, your business relies on that, right? If you look at these guys, I know I'm rambling, but we are talking.
It's great.
So you look at these guys like Orange Theory.
I'm taking notes, so I'm good.
Well, listen, if you look at guys like Orange Theory and F45, they can create social distancing. But what I look at as a businessman is like, well, how does that work, right? Because let's say, and I'm not knocking these guys, I'm just using them because people recognize their brands. Right. If you were, say, in an Orange Theory, how do you create social distancing? Do you go like every other treadmill, right? And if you do, then you're at what, half capacity? Right. Every other rower. So, but you can't survive on 400 members in that model. The business model is an 800 member model, right, to make good money. So it's like, I'm not sure what they'll do. I'll be really interested to see who's creative and who comes up with what solutions. I'm just feeling really happy that we are in this personal training construct, that we have no more than 12 people in the gym at any given time, which barely honestly puts us above that 10-person limit that we had at one point, right? And so, I don't know, we feel pretty good about it. And again, that addresses the trust issue as well. Now, other like tactical things that we're doing, Vince, is, little things like propping open the locker room doors just enough so somebody can like get their elbow in the wedge to open it, right?
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, if you have the ability to do that, because again, just touching things, right? Propping open the front door to your gym, same way if it's possible, right? Just so that people can stick an elbow or a foot in there. Maybe even installing, if you've seen in some high-end restrooms, they have those little foot hooks on the bottom where you can open the door with your feet because you don't want to touch the door. Great idea right now. And if you do that, I would, in a down and dirty, gritty way, walk around your gym with your iPhone and just say, here's the 10 things, or the 3 things or whatever it is that we've done in our gym to make sure that you're safe. And again, can it be spread respiratory? I don't know, man. Like, listen, all bets are off. I'm not a doctor and don't pretend to be. I think we all have the same data set and everyone looks at it through different lenses these days, right? But I think as a business owner, it's only going to help you if you can demonstrate at least that you're conscientious about it and that you're taking all the precautions that you feel like you can to protect them.
Wow. I'm still writing notes here. This is
It's a lot of jibber jabber, but yeah.
yeah. No, this is actually really, really, really helpful. A couple of the other things I think are just important. And this is obviously, I think everyone is doing this, but I think it's Steve Jobs always was more obsessed with the box that the iPhone came in than the actual iPhone. So I think packaging and presentation is everything. So even things like wipes. So everyone has gym wipes, right? But where strategically do those things go? And how many of them do you actually have to actually show your members that you are taking all of these? But I think that's brilliant to actually show them and walk around the gym. I did not think of the foot hooks. I did hear yesterday about shoes. And again, my cousin who sold his company for $100 million, so I think he knows he's somewhat smart.
Right.
He basically said a lot of the viruses stay on shoes. So I was thinking about potentially, and again, I'm not. Again, this podcast is not to say here's what we're doing. These are suggestions and
Yeah.
things like that. Same with Rick. But you know, do you go with the old RKC and have them not train with shoes, and then there's a liability, or do you have them keep a pair of shoes there? But I think the 1-on-6 model is great, and I want to kind of go back to when you're talking about the large group. So my audience is not a franchise. The people that listen to this podcast, most of them are either small group type facilities or they're large group only type facilities. If you were consulting with a large group only facility, and let's just say it's not constrained to the treadmills, and they're not having treadmills and things like that, it's basically your team training, and that's the only model they have. What advice would you give to that person that's doing large group of how they should safely structure and make adjustments to their program to
Um,
warrant some of these things you're talking about?
I think the same thing. So I would first say if there's any opportunity for you guys, to pivot to a small group business model, and I know that's a daunting task. Certainly, Vince, you could talk them through it. I know you and I've had discussions around, large group versus small group and where our real competitive advantage lies, and I think we both agree it's in that small group setting. And so pivot to that if you can, because one thing I didn't mention is there are still restrictions on the number of people, even in health clubs. So it's 10 people. So if you're running a team training style business that relies on 20 people per class, because that's what you're running to make money, for volume, you might not even be able to do that anymore, right? So
So Rick, are you saying it's 10 people per gym, no matter what the square footage is?
that's what the directive is right now. Now, whether
Really?
or not people will adhere to that, or whether or not they're going to police that, I don't know. But yes, it's 10 people per.
So when you open, you'll have essentially, if you were to keep your model going, you would essentially have two groups of five. If you were,
Theoretically, yes. I mean, and what we know is by the time that restriction changes, is when we'll be up to speed, right? It's interesting how sort of the public opinion of what's going on and their level of comfort seems to match the government directives, right? And so if we look at right now 10 people or less, we're probably not going to bust 10 people as we roll back into this thing, because we're going to have some people that choose to, they might consider themselves higher risk, or they just don't want to do it right now, so they're going to stay home and continue to do virtual.
right.
So by the time these restrictions are lifting, we'll be able to build back up, right? What I'm worried about is your group training guys or your boot camp guys, that when it's time to be open, they can be open, right? But what does that look like? And so I guess you could say, take the same precautions that we're taking. You can do a workout in your own space, timed workout with one or two pieces of equipment. You can do kettlebell complexes till you puke. It's like programming part's easy, I think. So
Right.
keeping social distancing, keeping them in their own space, using their own equipment, and then leaving enough time between sessions to wipe down the handles of those kettlebells and things, as an example, would be a really good idea. Whether or not that business structure works, whether there's enough volume in there for you to pay your overhead with half of your normal
Right.
folks.
Yeah, it becomes a
That's
pricing
some of
issue. Yeah.
yeah, it does. It does, because the price threshold of your current business, it might be 150 and you need to be at 300 or 250, right? to really run a small group and do it well. So I think it just maybe speaks to where you want to start heading, whether or not you get there now or not. I think this is a big eye opener, and it's probably put more of a spotlight on the business model that I think is going to work moving forward coming out of it.
The one advantage I do think that the large group memberships have is that they're not paying a super high price point, so there is probably a better chance for them to maintain a lot of their clients online. Because if they're paying $150 a month, it's not a huge thing, and you're providing a really good virtual service. Not to say that you shouldn't pivot to small group, because I think it is probably a really good idea. But the large group memberships probably will have an easier time versus guys like us that are charging $500-600 a month. That's a little harder to justify for virtual than 100 to 150 bucks a month for group training. So that is the one advantage that the large group training still has. But yeah, I think it'd be great, to dive into. I know Rick is a great person to learn from. We've done some, videos on how to implement small group training,
Yeah,
and even one-on-one too is not out of the, we've kind of beat it up for years, right? That never to do one-on-one. It's like you're going to get the COVID if you do one-on-one, and that's not. I mean, that's one-on-one's looking pretty damn good right now. I'll tell you that.
I bet you there's a lot of gym owners that would take their old one-on-one training
Yeah.
stuff back in a minute right now.
Yeah. No, I think, and we started to actually do some one-on-one over Zoom. We actually have a lot of people that requested, and a lot of my mastermind guys have kind of done this too, is the 30-minute one-on-one call over Zoom. It's quick, it's in and out. Your 15-minute warm-up on their own, you're with them for 30 minutes and then they're gone. And you can charge like a decent premium for that service. So it's definitely something to consider as you go, is not a ban, because I do feel like if someone's comfortable in coming to a gym, they'd probably be most comfortable in that environment when they're not in with any people, and it's one trainer, one person, you got your own pocket of the gym and things like that. So that was great, Rick. Thank you so much. All right, you mentioned trust a bunch of times. Now, you're a person that's had a gym for 20 plus years. I imagine some of those clients have been with you almost since the beginning. So you're a great person to talk to in terms of building trust. But I want to, and you mentioned the marketing, you mentioned the walk around the gym and the show people what they're doing for cleaning. But as we go, we still need to continue to market our business, right? We can't just rely on, the clients we have at this point right now, since we have. So if you were kind of giving advice on the marketing side of it and getting your message out there, what are things that you would say, do, demonstrate, whatever, to help build trust with the people that may not know you that well yet?
Yeah, and I think it goes back to even the video that we just talked about, right? I
Yeah.
mean, as you know, Vince, like I do a lot of business to business marketing, which is for the franchise, and then I have to do business to consumer marketing for either the individual locations or for my own corporately owned locations. And those two types of marketing are completely different, right?
Mm-hmm.
Business to business, it works well when it's polished and it looks professional, and there's a certain level of professionalism that's expected. Whereas that same level of professionalism marketed locally for your mom and pop gym, which is what you want it to feel like, is a bit of a turnoff. It feels too, corporate, right? You're not going to get
Right.
in. So I love the idea of that down and dirty video, and maybe just telling the story. Like, if it was me doing that, I would say like, hey, I'm Rick, Mayo. I've been here since 1992 in the same location. I've lived in this city also, within miles of this gym, taking care of this community for nearly 30 years. We take this seriously. We open this business to enhance the health of our community, and this is part of that. So I just want to walk you through quickly what our business is about and what we're doing right now to keep you healthy. We're allowed to be open. We're keeping it less than 10 people. Thankfully, we do personal training so we can control it. I would just tell the story, right? And walk around the gym and just make it down and dirty and show a couple of things, the foot openers for the locker rooms, the you know, we've got this, we got that. You work out in your own space, you know, maybe grab a member and be like, hey, what do you think? And they're like, oh, it's great. You know, like, I'm nervous too, but this is the cleanest place I've ever been. I mean, whatever that is, right? That would go a long way in a marketing campaign right now. And I think if you were just going to look at what kind of, not necessarily, you know, graphics or video, but copy would just be to touch on all these things, right? Like we're doing these things, bam, 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 bam,
That is brilliant. And I tell you, man, I really do believe that the local brick and mortar, which you and I are both brick and mortar, and we both consult business owners as well. And I do believe that there's a lot of the consulting out there that tries to turn brick and mortar gym owners into these internet marketers. And it's funny because I never heard anyone quite put it like that, but yeah, you're using all this fancy stuff and these, really cool lead magnets and all these things like that like, these are just local people that want to go to a good local establishment to get trusted advice and trusted guidance on their health and fitness. And it's like, I think that's one of the best answers I've heard. Is really I just heard be authentic and be you,
bam. Yeah,
and
be as
showing your
raw,
roots. Yeah.
just be as raw as you need to be. It's like you're having a conversation. You're inviting a guest into your business that lives in your community. I also live in this community. I see these people at the grocery store and whatnot. I do care about them personally. I want them to know that. And that's easy to grab in a real casual video. If you just said, all right, 1, 2, 3, go, and just did it off the cuff and spent a minute walking around your gym, telling your story while showing a couple of features, right? Making people feel comfortable. Again, remember, it goes back to Vince, what we talked about earlier is like someone saying, I'm not going to another gym. There's a whole bunch of people in there I don't know. I'm like, well, I'm not sure whether you know someone or not affects whether you get COVID. We know it doesn't, but there's an inherent trust level there, right? And so
Right.
right now, trust is probably the most valuable commodity that you could be, that you can have in your community, 100%. So this is how you do it. You're real, you're raw, you show what you are doing, talk about what you're doing for your community. A local gym with the owner's face on this video, it's just going to build more trust. And whether or not that prevents someone from catching a virus, I think we could probably agree, maybe not, but it certainly does feel like it. And that is important. And then take all the precautions that you need to keep your community as safe as possible.
That's awesome, man. Really, really great answer. And all right, so I want to kind of shift gears, and we've been talking a lot about this, but I think a lot of people have. Um, I've been seeing a lot of stuff on social media lately about the return to the return to the gym, and what I'm scared of is people get so focused on the return to the gym, and they have this whole host of clients still doing their online, that they lose sight of that program and take their eyes off that. And what I have seen, and I do this presentation on value, and I talk about like the intrinsic value versus what Dan Kennedy calls IPU value. And that's IPU is intangible, personal, and unique. And the intrinsic value is the workout, right? It's the Zoom workout, it's what you give them. But the IPU value is the experience, it's the trust, it's the being part of the community, it's the status they get by being a member of Alloy. What are so I'm guessing guys just didn't give them workouts. What are the other things that you have done to engage your members to? I mean, you're charging $400 or $500 a month to be part of your gym, and you just moved it all online. And I assume you kept charging that amount, which is the same thing what we did.
We did drop our rates a bit.
Okay, okay.
Yep, a bit.
Do you have a percentage?
Uh, on average, I would say 20%.
Okay, and did you do that immediately?
We did not. So when we were still in the hybrid phase of like open, but it was coming, you could see it.
Right.
We were still charging normal rates because theoretically people still had the option to come to the gym.
Mm-hmm.
People said there's no way in heck I'm coming to the gym. Of course, without the knowledge that we had a really good virtual playbook because they'd never used it, the initial conversation always went like, hey, I want to freeze, or I need to put things on hold. And we would say, hey, no one's doing that. We're just training you virtually. We have this app that you probably don't know about. And they're like, oh, okay, great. So again, it's like, not, do you want to? It's like, no, we're not doing that. We're all doing this now. And it's like, oh, we are. Okay, well, then that's what we'll do, right? and then we went to virtual. So we did drop our rates a little bit, but we're still, you know, a couple $100 and more for online.
Yeah, which is great. And so talk about that. Actually, that's an important point, because I'm sure people are still getting it if they haven't. I'm sure they've gotten it already. But what was that conversation like when someone said, "Hey, I wanted to go on hold," and you just really just said it? But what was the process like? Did you have someone reach out to them one on one? Was that conversation done via email? Like, how was that? How did that whole process go?
Yeah. So we would use email in our private Facebook page, which has a ton of engagement on it, to, you know, widely spread the messages. And then we
Right.
had role play in our meetings. You're going to have people that are going to reach out to you directly as a coach and say like, hey, because, you know, there's a million and one ways to get a hold of someone these days, whether it's, you know, Facebook Messenger or whatever that is. And they're going to say, hey, look, you know, can you let so-and-so know to put my membership on hold? And we had to role play what those answers would be, both verbally and written. Right. So we had scripts, which would really help. And we had to make sure that our team, because our team had run some virtual training, but none of them had been straight up virtual coaches ever. So we had to make sure that they had full buy-in, that what we were providing was a great value, right? So that they had that personal conviction and that efficacy to say, look, no one's doing that. We're all going online. Like, you're not getting off the hook. Again, you're having that coach-client relationship, right? Like, what are you talking about? You're going to quit? No, you're not. So you're just going to give up all this fitness that you've made so far? No, everybody's doing it online now. So we have an app. We're going to get you downloaded that, and we went from there. So what we did first is, after we got the team on board, everyone understood what we were doing. They understand the value proposition. We explained what real online training would cost if you engaged a high-end online training coach, which we feel like we were in that category, certainly technically. And we were coming in well below that. So we kind of obviously drove home the fact that it was a smoking value, got the team's buy-in on that. And then we broke all the clients into buckets, and we had each trainer's responsibility was to service their bucket. And we created just a down and dirty Google sheet, and we created a playbook for virtual that was like, this is how many touch points everyone has to have each week. There's going to be you know, you're going to send them one exercise message, one nutrition message, and one mindset message per week. You're going to have a call with them once a week, either via Zoom or just on the phone, or at least you're offering it if they'll take it, right? We're updating their workouts every 2 weeks on the app. You know, and so there was just a million and one things that we did. And then our team came up with all kinds of things. You know, we didn't do any Zoom workouts for scheduled times. We actually thought, well, we're doing personal training now, so let's do one-on-one training and just service it virtually. So we just dug in with each person, and like your one-on-one training via Zoom kind of thing. That's basically what we were doing. So once a week, we would get them, how's it going? How do you like your workouts? You know, is there anything else that you need different? And it was great. It felt like, to a lot of people, it felt like more specificity and higher level of service, right? And it was actually a lot more work than our coaches thought. I mean, they were actually
Right.
working a lot, right? To service a bucket of, you know, 100 clients or something. It's a lot of work to do that.
Yeah.
And so, you know, that's kind of how we rolled it out. And it was wildly, you know, popular, more so than I even thought, with our clients. You're like, I absolutely love this, right? We're getting a lot of great comments that we've been using for marketing, you know, on, hey, this is really helping, and it's very engaging. It's like, I have a personal trainer, but I'm at home. And, you know, sometimes we would get on the phone with people and they're just having a down day, like this thing affects you, and they're stuck home with the kids, or, you know, maybe they just went through a divorce, or, you know, I mean, who knows what's going on in their lives, or there's somebody in their family sick with COVID. And, you know, just to have a third party ear that's really upbeat, right? One thing I'll mention about that, and I just don't want to forget, if you guys are going to run this play with your coaches, don't underestimate the fact that your coaches are also people, right? I
Yeah.
think for me, it's like, hey man, we're going to kick some ass. We're going to motivate all these people. And I've got coaches that are single parents that have 3 kids at home, who are now basically teachers, right? On top of working and doing everything else. And then I'm expecting them to get on the phone for 3 or 4 hours a day and be like, hey, what's up? You know, like, they've got all this energy. They have the same challenges that everyone else has.
Right.
So I didn't want them to, I wanted them to know that that wasn't lost on me or anyone, and how proud I was of them for saying, look, we've taken on this role that has a certain level of responsibility to it. Like, if you're a trainer or a coach, you're a leader, love it or not. So you're going to have to leave all that stuff, and you're going to have to get it on and fake it till you make it. And you have to be something bigger to these people who are going to have these conversations, right? But you just make sure that you acknowledge that if you're an owner or a manager, and that you're there for them in that same way that they're there for their clients, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Because it's really important, because they're humans as well, and they're going through the same shit our clients are going through. and you're yet expecting them to be, a ray of sunshine or a lighthouse in everyone's life. It's like, great, but someone's got to do it for them. Put it that way.
Right, right. Yeah, no, I've been using the analogy of the lighthouse throughout this whole period as soon as this thing started. And with it comes that it's a really good point you're making. And because I've been preaching, we got to be the lighthouse and we got to be the strong one in their life, and they're out on the boats and the waves but as long as they can see you, the lighthouse. And you're right in that we need to make sure as owners that we are being that lighthouse for them. And then you have to find out who the lighthouse is for you, because you're right, because no one can go at this alone. This is a really,
Well,
really
I think,
challenging time.
and to your point, Vince, I mean, if you're a servant leader and you're transparent and you're just, I would sit in the meetings and say, how's everyone doing? And they're like, oh, this and that. How's the teaching going? And we just have these open conversations. Humor is part of it's actually one of our core values. So we crack a lot of jokes and make fun of each other and who's being a teacher now and stay-at-home moms and all this funny stuff. But at the end of the day, it's nice to be transparent too. And I would just tell my guys, like, I had a shit weekend, like I was great when the thing first broke out. I'm an entrepreneur. I love to problem solve. There's the biggest problem ever. I'm all in. And then once it gets to 3 or 4 weeks in, it was like, you could just feel that energy for everybody.
Yeah.
Oh shit, this is our new reality for a bit, And so I had it too. So there's nothing wrong with sitting at the table with your people saying, I had a really shitty weekend. Like I didn't do anything. I like binge watched Netflix, sat on my ass and did nothing. And so how is everyone else doing? Because I know I struggled this weekend, right? And I would tell them that you guys are motivating to me, like my coach's motive. So you look for that lighthouse, like their ability to step up and put their personal, not problems, but their personal lives aside and be a lighthouse to others. That inspires me. So that is my lighthouse, is my team, and watching them do that, even though the directive has been given by me, they're the ones that have to do it. And so I'm just like, God, that's awesome. Like, I don't even know if I could do that, right? I'd be thinking that sometimes, like, I don't know if I could be you. You're awesome at what you do, right? And we just had some really good conversations and some tears and, some laughter and all kinds of just being real people, really. I think that's really important right now. So anyway, I know that kind of runs down a rabbit hole of management and leadership, but it was really important. It was something that I maybe didn't anticipate when I started this thing. It's like, I'm in attack mode. We're just going to kill this, right? And then I'm like, well, wait a minute. I'm sure everyone's feeling a little bit like our clients, and they were. And so it's a good thing to address.
Right. I did it. I did a podcast on that called the COVID-19 adrenaline crash. And it really was, it really was like the first 2 weeks, you're like, got this shit, like, let's go. And then all of a sudden you got smashed in the face. But you make a good point of just, what you're talking about is just showing vulnerability, showing, your team that, hey, you're not a machine. And I had some of my mastermind guys, like, because I was doing Zoom calls for, I'm running you're running multiple businesses too. And I'm like running the GFP team and I'm on these mastermind calls. And there was one point where I did like 6 Zoom calls in 6 days in a row with the mastermind right when this thing started. And, one of my guys, it's funny because they started checking in on me and they're like, dude, you got to slow down. Like, you're not a machine. And I think and what it taught me is like, I need to do a better job showing these guys that, hey, I'm not like a robot going through this, that I'm struggling with this too. And this is challenging. And I'm trying to balance being a father and trying to teach my kid how to ride a bike in the middle of COVID-19 is not the easiest thing to do in the world. But I think it's a great leadership lesson that you just brought up, is that vulnerability is the foundation for trust. And, as leaders, we kind of got to go through this and do the best we can to be the lighthouse, but also to be open as that you're not perfect and you're not, going through this like the Terminator, if you will.
Yeah.
So
My nickname at work, Vince, used to be Spock, because everyone thought I was literally like emotionless, was calculated, never showed any emotion. It's like, you're
that's
Spock,
great.
right? And I used to I was a little proud of that, but like over time, I'm like, that's not the way to do it. There's a better way to do it. I think they were more picking on me than anything, but yeah, man, it's really important to show that to your team and appreciate what they're doing. And so once, again, that's just a side note, but once we had the robust playbook built for virtual, our clients, a lot of our clients surprisingly really liked it. Now, I don't think ultimately that it's going to be like everyone's going online after this. I hear people saying it's like, I'm getting rid of my brick and mortar. I'm going to use this as an opportunity to wiggle out of my lease and I'm just going to train everyone virtually. It's like, well, A, that means the space is going to be more crowded, and it was kind of already crowded before. And there's an inherently low trust to online training, as you know, right? Like you don't know the person. So the great thing about taking a brick and mortar family, if you will, online, and the success of that is because you already know them. There's an established relationship that has the trust of a brick and mortar. So don't underestimate that, and don't think that what's happening with your current clients is a reflection of what you're going to be able to build with people that have never come to your facility, that you've never met before, right? I don't think that's true. I think it's a different relationship altogether. There's inherently lower trust. And so I don't see, unless you're willing to get on Instagram and you've got an amazing body and people want your abs or whatever that is, that you're really going to build a huge online audience. I like it as a supplement. Will we keep it on the menu moving forward? Maybe, but we're definitely keeping it on the menu for right now, because again, probably half our clients are going to be
You
on
have to.
on Monday. Yeah. And I mean, what we'll do from a manpower allocation, I don't think we've talked about this yet, is we'll just put one coach on the shift, and the other coach will, we'll run the virtual that day, and we'll just go at like half till, because the way our business model works, we got two coaches training 6 people at any given time. So we've got these sort of 2 pod approaches. And right now we could probably get away with just one coach, and the other coach can do their virtual duties, and we just flip flop days or something like that. And that also keeps it fair. It's funny because my guys were really nervous about coaching virtually. And once they got their hands around it, it's like, oh, this is awesome. I can sit around with hammies and not have to be at work at any certain time of the day, right?
Yeah.
And so once we said, hey, we're going to reopen, I think every coach, we use Slack as communication. Every one of my coaches Slacked me individually and was like, hey, man, like just throwing my name in the hat there. If you need somebody just to do the virtual clients only, I'll take those on. I was like, okay, I'll bet you will. As you're sitting there in your underwear, it's been funny. So we'll do it in an equitable manner so that everyone has a shot at like staying home one day a week or something, whatever that is.
Rick, as an entrepreneur, running multiple businesses, and what have you done to help navigate your own physical side, mental side, emotional side? This is not an easy situation, and I really do believe that a lot of. I heard a quote the other day that a business doesn't get it doesn't get crushed by COVID because of COVID. It really is because of overwhelm. They just got overwhelmed. And so, what advice do you have to people that are just feeling overwhelmed right now, and what can they be doing to just reduce that amount of overwhelm to be able to kind of keep moving forward in a really difficult situation?
I think it's important to control what you can control. There's so many cliche sayings, Vince, that you've probably read as a leader, that, control the things you can, let go of the things you can't. I think that's the sort of premise of stoicism, even, right? Is only control the things you can and don't worry about the things you can't. It's easier said than done, but it is true, right? I mean,
Sure.
it gets a lot of lip service for a reason. So I know that I've talked about this with my team, and we obviously, I think everyone has a podcast now, but we have one, and we did this, like some things that fitness professionals can do right now. And some of those things are just tackling, keep a set schedule and tackle your daily morning as if it's a morning that you're going to be going to the gym, right? Don't completely break all of your routines, because, if you listen to, who was it that said this? It's one of the raw guys, the military. Oh, Jocko is his name. You know him. He's got the podcast, and he's a Navy SEAL. And he's like, a routine is freedom, because if I do my routine, then I've got this freedom around it to think. And like, I don't have to plan all these things. It doesn't take up my mental space. So I know for a lot of folks, especially squirrel-brained entrepreneurs, there's a million and one things going at all times. So having a structure, at least around part of your day, can give you the mental freedom to then focus on the bigger problems, right? Now, one example that I've taught for years that I use is just an index card, and I just put 5 things on it, either the night before or early first thing in the morning, that I'm going to do that day that aren't reactionary, right? Like I'm not going to get on social media and read the news and check all my emails. I'm going to do these things, or at least start these things, and these need to be finished by day's end. And those are things that I want to do, right? Those are things that I can prioritize, where I'm not being reactive to what someone else needs. Just that alone, I mean, the sum of 5 little things done every day over 365 days is a massive leap forward.
Yeah.
So I would say that it's going to take, it's just like weight loss or anything else. Like, you're going to have to start eating well to get motivated, right? It doesn't come the other way around. You don't all of a sudden just wake up and you're like, bam, I'm on this, right? No, you're going to have to do some hard work. You're not going to want to do it. It's all the things you tell your clients about fat loss or what have you. It's the same shit for a business. Like you're going to have to get up and do all the things you don't want to do. But lo and behold, if you do those things, you're going to see these positive results. You're going to build that self-efficacy, and then you're going to want to do more of it because you feel better and you're getting more done during the day. You're not as negative and you don't have these downward spirals emotionally. And that's about all that you can do. So I would say if you're in a mastermind like yours, you're lucky, right? You need a community to reach out to talk to. Control your morning routine. So invest in yourself. So do your 5 things. If you meditate or journal or whatever, do that. I gave my team the 5-minute journal, which is a really
Yeah, that's
powerful
great.
sort of,
Yeah.
it's a little journal. It takes you 5 minutes, right? But it's a grateful journal essentially at the end of the day. And so like, what better way to feel better about your situation than to look at what you're grateful for? If you're a male born in the United States, it's like you've won the zip code lottery of all times and the lottery overall. You're just lucky, right? And so
Right.
like if you're here, even though it sucks, it's like, well, you're here. I mean, that's one thing to be grateful for. I
Right.
know it's hard to see through that sometimes, right? But those are the types of things where you just have to repetitively, beat them into your own head until you'll get better. And then obviously don't stop exercising right now, because as much as people think that gym people work out all the time, it's like regular people. By the way, you've told your clients a million times the brain chemistry and all the positive benefits of exercise. So get on that, right? So there's all these other things that you can do that you've probably told other people to do, right? That, by the way, work, but you're gonna have to suck it up and do them to see the benefit.
I tell you, Rick, I was doing a call a couple of weeks ago, and I was talking about how that, you need to stay fit and stuff like that. And I was going around and I was like, who's having trouble staying fit? And there was a few people on the call that were like, I'm struggling. And some guy comments in the chat and he's like, I don't understand a fitness professional that can't stay in shape. And I typed back into the chat, or I think I said it actually out loud. I was like, well, then you don't understand human behavior at all. And it's just
What
like,
makes us any different, right? Like,
well,
you can't
it's
be
like,
the best at everything.
I know
So
it's absolutely a ridiculous statement to make. And actually his response was when I asked, um, his response was when I asked about how your fitness level is, his response was perfect as always. And my response to him was, well, perfect is the lowest form of human standard right now. So, so
yeah,
I was giving him some shit,
good for
but
you. Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
yeah,
like you can't hit on all cylinders, and as an entrepreneur, you got to give yourself a little bit of grace, right? I think you need to do it for the reasons that we talked about, like
right,
attitude, self-efficacy, all the things that it help, brain chemistry, all these things that it's going to help, depression, whatever that is, right? But you also have to give yourself some grace. It's like you're a human being like everyone else. If you're being the lighthouse for your team and all of your clients or whatever, it's like, of course you're going to be stressed. You're going to have some really bad days. You're going to be some tears and tons of fear and like what's going to happen and self-doubt. And there's all these things that creep in, but that's part of being a human being, right?
yep,
If you don't allow yourself those things and you can't categorize those and accept them for what they are, and not that you're a bad person or you're not a great leader, or that I'm not going through it or that you're not going through it, or anybody else in their life that they might seek advice from is not going through that, you're crazy. We're all doing it. So that goes back to maybe that vulnerability thing, right? Like just allow yourself
yep,
to have it, sit with those feelings for a minute and get on with your day. I mean, at the end of the day, no one cares, but we do, but we don't, right? Like by the way, you and I, Vince, we're having the same issues, right?
for sure.
Same exact issues. But the difference is, are you going to then, okay, I get it. We're all having them. I acknowledge it. Okay. But here's the things that needs to be done to plow forward. Right.
Yep.
And so, in a lot of ways, you should be thankful that you're in a position where you have to lead, because that then forces you to sort of get out of your own head and get in front of people and fake it till you make it. And by the way, it's like smiling, right? If you do it, it does change your chemistry. So you can go and do a couple motivational emails and phone calls to clients, and lo and behold, you feel a lot better. So serving people is a great way to get your head out of your ass.
Yeah, for sure. Yep.
I would
Yep.
say be thankful for that. It's
Yep.
another thing.
Awesome. Well,
All right,
Rick,
buddy, I'm rambling. So
I
I know
had
you
no,
got.
I have a whole page of notes, and I have to jump off. I have a GFPT meeting that's waiting for me right now. But Rick, how can people get in touch with you?
Anyway, I'm all over social media, just Rick Mayo or Coach Rick Mayo. I don't know, anywhere. And then our website is alloypersonaltraining.com. And it's all about the franchise, but there's some good content on there. Our podcast is Alloy Personal Training Business, which is a mouthful, but there's a lot of good stuff. that relates to what we're talking about now that's on there as well. And they're all short and sweet, less than 30 minutes or so.
Awesome. Awesome.
Vince, good to
Well,
talk
Rick,
to you, man. I'm
thank
glad
you.
you're doing well.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you coming on. Great job.
Yeah, man. You too. Good to see you.
All right. Later, brother.
Cheers.